what we've just witnessed there was a shameful, unacceptable performance from West Ham. I was hoping we would see a reaction. I'd hoping we'd see some fight. I'd hoping that what we saw in the London Stadium in the first game against Bristol City would be enough of an embarrassment to actually cajole and motivate some of these players. And maybe they might feel a little bit ashamed that, I mean, look at some of the price tags from some of these players. 25 million, 17 million, 24 million, 35 million. I'll go on and on and on. That might be enough. A bit of professional pride might make them actually try and put a bit of effort in and try and win this game. But I was very, very much mistaken. Let me just get a couple of things right before I start on my rant. Congratulations to Bristol City. I actually hope they go out and win the trophy. I think that'd be brilliant. I'd love that to happen, actually. Got a good tie in the next round as well. We can have no complaints. We've played them twice. We've had a really, really good opportunity there. We played them at our stadium. We couldn't beat them there. We played them at their stadium. We couldn't beat them there. And in fact, we lost. They absolutely deserve it. No problem with it at all. Congratulations to Callum Marshall, of course, debut there, so well done. I think that was absolutely brilliant. Really pleased to see that as well. And I think congratulations to Ben Johnson as well, who managed to get subbed onto from the bench and somehow from defence managed to look our best attacking player and probably our best player. I don't know, Emerson was okay too. Right, okay, now we've got all the bum fluffery and all the niceties out of the way. Let's just have a little look at what we saw there. That midfield partnership, that's a disgrace. That's an absolute disgrace. How can those two not be able to pass the ball between them? I thought it was disgusting. I'll tell you what, there was one point in that match where Souček's pass was so bad, he put his teammate, Vladimir Coufal, into the sort of 50-50 challenge that can get you injured. The passing was awful from Souček. By the way, it wasn't the worst passing we were going to see. And while we're on Coufal, I thought that was close to his worst game. I can't remember. Maybe you could go through the archives and you might pinpoint me a game where Coufal was worse than that, and I might turn around and say, okay, yeah, now you've pointed it out, that one was worse. But as off the top of my head, that's about as bad as I've seen him play. I mean, it was all there, really. Lack of technique, lack of focus, lack of passing. I guess I'm sort of got to dig him out a little bit because Johnson got subbed on and was so much better than him. And I've got to say, if what we're doing at the moment is we are going to let Johnson go, but we're not going to bring another right back in, I think that's a really, really crazy thing to do. I'm looking at that and thinking, this player could well leave West Ham. He's been here since he was 8, by the way, and actually go and do a pretty damn good job somewhere else. So well done him. I was pleased for Johnson, actually. And, I think West Ham probably need to sort that situation out. Obviously, Vladimir Coufal's got a bit of a contract situation going on. He's paid about a quarter as much as a lot of his teammates. I'll tell you what, he played about a quarter as well as he usually plays in this game, I've got to say that. But he was far from on his own. Let's get to the goal. Mavropanos, horrendous, absolutely horrendous back pass, gifted him a goal. Actually, the striker did all right, to be fair. Fair play to Bristol City on that, but it was a mistake. It was a mistake from West Ham. Mavropanos never recovered. He was a bag of nerves after that, a complete bag of nerves. It was a terrible defence, by the way. Kurt Zuma tried it at one point, wasn't quite as bad as Mavropanos. Aaron Cresswell, you're not going to believe this, Aaron Cresswell almost did exactly the same thing, and it required a sort of saving, nifty bit of footwork from Lucas Fabianski to save Aaron Cresswell. Unbelievable. I mean, really, really good skill. Who'd have thought it? It was a terrible performance. I mean, it really was. Look, Benrahma, let's be fair. Let's be absolutely fair here. We went down to 10 men. Most of the second half, we were down to 10 men. It was a deserved red card, by the way. This is how I saw it happen. It was feisty. Both encounters were feisty. I very much said at the start of this tie that West Ham needed to force themselves, basically put the wind up at this team. You know, and I ideally I would have started to do it in a tunnel. I felt the first thing we should have done in this game was foul them. and actually just put them under a bit of pressure, have them worried that they might get injured. It was just more of the same. We were startled. We had no fight in us. One of the first things was Danny Ings got clattered very, very early in the game, and that sort of set the tone. There was barely anybody in the West Ham team who had any fight in them. It was quite disgusting. Actually, there was a bit near. There was a little bit with Souček where he dragged someone to the ground. But let's be fair. I mean, we're playing him for 180 minutes, and he's the biggest player on the team, quite possibly. So, yeah, look, one little bit of aggression, whoopie do. The red card is how I saw it. Emerson, who towards the end of the first half and start of the second half, started to get a little bit feisty. Started to put a tackle in. He put a tackle in on one of the Bristol City players, and it was a bit of a naughty tackle. And then sort of as retribution, one of the Bristol City players went in on Said Benrahma. It probably was a yellow card. Benrahma took complete offence to it. But it was, I've got to say, I think it was a culmination of sort of constant fouling over two ties. In the end, Benrahma lost his head. He sort of lashed out, and I thought he sort of kicked him. He sort of almost done a double lash out, almost arched his back, propelled himself in the air, and sort of kicked him in the I don't know, his left foot sort of hit the player in the Niagaras, I think, and the right foot hit him in the chest. Benrahma got sent off. He was right to get sent off. There was other stuff that happened afterwards. Maybe, just maybe, if there was VAR, I think one of the Bristol City players would have got sent off for sort of, to call it a punch would have been too much. And it's a bit fair play to Aaron Cresswell for, I guess, not falling down like a sack of what's it. But yeah, I mean, VAR, probably the Bristol Rovers player would have got sent off. But we would have needed something like that for us to win the game. We really would. We needed sort of divine intervention, because I tell you what, playing football, we weren't good enough. Let me tell you something that was really, really obvious about that game and very evident early on. Their goalkeeper was dodgy. He almost, if you haven't seen the game, he almost threw the ball in his own net. Honestly. There was another time he dropped the ball. He was dodgy. He was nervous. There was another time he came rushing out of the goal to try and do a clearance. He kicks it right near him into touch as well. Dodgy as hell, right? You've all been there. You've all played football in a park, or your kids have played football in a park, and you've all faced that team who've got a dodgy keeper. What'd you do? You shoot. You shoot on sight, right? He was a nervous wreck. I think their keeper was about as nervous as Mavropanos was for us after he conceded the goal. We didn't do that. We didn't attack him. We did not put any pressure on him at all. Do you know why? Because we didn't know how, and we couldn't. We did not know how to attack. And that, from that standpoint, it was embarrassing. Equally embarrassing, the lack of fight and the lack of nous and ability to actually attack. I've done too many videos on too many occasions about the composition of the squad and why we don't seem to have a usable bench, and why we spend £17 million on Conway and £20 million on Said Benrahma and so on and so forth, and they're bloody useless. Well, I don't really see what the point is of saying it anymore. I'll tell you what I do know though. If the club, as I hear, the club are entertaining for bids for Said Benrahma, if they can get somewhere close to their money back, they are having a right laugh. I tell you that. We were. I think Benrahma might have cost 24 million, something like that. I'm not far away. We think anyone's offering 24 million for him? I feel sorry for him. He was a hero of Prague. He is a hero of Prague. I've seen this happen with other West Ham players before. They stay too long. I don't think it's all his fault. Let me just say that. But I've discussed this. How many? What have I got to do? 20, 30 videos where I probably said how I don't think it's Benrahma's fault. At some point, I just got to say it as it is. A few tricks, a few flicks. There's no threat. He is no threat at all. Honestly, the most incisive thing he did all day was kick the fella, and that's really it. I don't know what David Moyes thinks about these young players, but and I'm not massively advocating for any of our youngsters to start in the Premier League at the moment. I'm really not, because I don't think they're ready. But I'll tell you what, they can't be any worse than that. They can't. What we've got off the bench, the youngsters aren't any worse than that at all. And do you know what? Fair play to Marshall, actually. He showed real tenacity and real fight at the end. And to be fair, Mubama battled as well. I'm picking Marshall up because we've not really seen him before for the senior team. So he put in a tackle, he won the ball back, and then played a really nice crossfield ball to Mubama, looking for his teammate. Was that far away from controlling it, Mubama? Maybe the pass was a little bit overhit, but it was good. It was good to see. And I was pleased to see that. And it was one small bright spark on on what was a pretty poor evening, really. The other thing I will probably say before I skedaddle, actually, is there was a point during the second half where we looked like we might create something. And here is a source of... This should be the biggest source of embarrassment for James Ward-Prowse and Thomas Souček, who were bloody useless. Really useless. I don't know why I'm pointing at you. It's not your fault. But they were absolutely useless. There was a little point where Emerson moved into central midfield. Not for long. Not for long. It happened sporadically on 3 occasions. He looked our best midfielder. Each time he went in there. I mean, it was it was like an epiphany. It's crazy. This is going to sound absolutely crazy. If West Ham were going to win the game, even with 10 men, it was probably going to come from either Ben Johnson or Emerson in midfield. How mental is that? It's true. Well, I think it's the way I viewed it anyway. We had plenty of corners, but there's no threat from any of that stuff either, by the way. How embarrassing is that for Ward-Prowse and Souček that the fullback steps into central midfield and looks like a better central midfielder than either of those two? But armed with that little chink of information, that little thing there, even if it was accidental, surely someone on the coaching team, surely someone on the bench says, hold on a second, let's get him in there. At this point, Cresswell hadn't gone off, all right? Even if you do take Cresswell off, put Ollie Scholes in there and just think, right, look, I haven't intended any of this, but this is looking good. Emerson in the middle of the pitch. Let's do that. Let's do that. It's something. It looks like a goal could come from there. No, he moved back out. By the end of it, by the time the substitutions were done and Obama and Marshall came on, I was pleased for him to come on. Emerson had gone back to left back, and that threat had dissipated. There was that little bit of threat that we might have had from midfield had gone. Why? Because we had Ward-Prowse and we had Thomas Souček in there. I'm really trying hard not to focus on too much on individual players, but there was some. In many respects, I can almost half forgive Mavropanos because it was a horrendous mistake, and then he was sort of shot and he tried, but he was just bloody useless. But you can almost pinpoint a reason why it was. He lost all his confidence. Look, we've seen it before. It's been funny. We've seen it with Ben Johnson before. But in that game, Mavropanos lost all his confidence and he was shot. I don't know what the excuse was for James Ward-Prowse. I don't know what the excuse was for Thomas Souček. I don't know what the excuse was for Vladimir Coufal. They weren't the only ones. They really weren't. Look, I've probably covered most of them in this game. In this review. I'm pretty peed off with that, actually. It's not the first time we've gone out in the cup. And if you'd have watched the review, I'm not ultimately surprised. I think in the review I said 1-0 to Bristol City. That being said, I sort of hoped it wouldn't happen, and I started to get excited an hour before the game when I joined Gio. There you go. Reality sets in. We have no business beating Bristol City, though. You know, you play a team for 180 minutes and they beat you, and more than that with the injury time. Probably more like 190 minutes by the time it was all done, and you can't beat them. Then they're the better team. Plainly and simply. Yeah, look, I do understand. If we had Bowen, Paqueta, Kudus and the rest of it, it might be different. Quite possibly. But the one thing I can say is I think you're also looking at it. But those players have got fight as well. Bowen's got fight. Paqueta's got fight. Kudus got fight. Edson Alvarez, he's got fight. Maybe there is a reason that these other players aren't top players, and maybe it's because they haven't got that fight. Because I tell you what, they certainly didn't display it. I wasn't happy. Do you know what? I'm not going to say we threw that. We didn't. We did not throw the FA Cup. But when the commentators are saying West Ham didn't look like they could be bothered, and what else can you say? I think it was Joby McAnuff maybe saying it, who's played for West Ham himself, you know. Just didn't look like West Ham could be bothered. Didn't look like they wanted it. We didn't look interested. You know what? And you know what? Maybe we weren't. But I don't think that's particularly good for the West Ham fans who travel bloody freezing as well, by the way. West Ham fans who've travelled down there on a cold Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? Cold Tuesday night. Not good at all. Yeah, bloody embarrassing. I'll tell you what, though, and I'll leave you with this final thought, and that is that Sheffield United, is it Chris Wilder? I think Chris Wilder's gone back there. I might be wrong. If I'm wrong, please excuse me. I'll tell you what, they'll be rubbing their hands at that, because what that has shown, Bristol City has shown that you can bully West Ham out of a game. And I tell you what, Bristol City can do it. Sheffield United can certainly do it. And I think the biggest surprise for me is that we hadn't adjusted at all. That was the one thing. I probably spent the last week talking about it, anytime I've spoken about the game. The real thing that was evident from the first game was that we got bullied. Now, you can work on tactics, you can work on any number of things, but that was the one thing I expected to be addressed. That, okay, it's become attritional, it's become an aggressive game. Let's expect that. Let's go out, let's get them, let's impose ourselves. These are not small players. Mavropanos not a small geezer. It's Kurt Zuma, Thomas Souček, come on. You know, where is it? We got bullied again. We learned absolutely nothing. Physically, we learned nothing. Tactically, we probably wanted to win. Just like the first game, we didn't know how.